You know, when the sun darkens right in the middle of the day or the moon just vanishes from the night sky, it's a moment that's always captivated and, let's be honest, kind of unsettled people for centuries. But in the Islamic tradition, it's way more than just a cool astronomical event. It's a profound call to attention. So let's dive into this unique spiritual response to the dance of the sun and moon. I mean, really think about it for a second. The natural order, the very rhythm of our day and night is just suddenly and dramatically disrupted. It's this universal experience of awe and maybe even a little bit of fear. It makes you look up and really think about your place in the universe. And it's right there, in that cosmic pause, that a very specific response is called for. And this is the foundational teaching right here. It's not a suggestion to just, watch it happen or analyze it. The instruction from the Prophet Muhammad is immediate and it's crystal clear. When the heavens send a sign like this, the faithful are urged to seek refuge in prayer, to turn inward and connect with the divine. So why such a serious response? Because in the Islamic worldview, an eclipse isn't just some random thing happening up in space. It's understood as a powerful, intentional sign from God, and it's meant to make us stop what we're doing and reflect on something much, much deeper. The key to really understanding this is the Arabic term ayah. Now, this word can mean a sign or a miracle or even a verse of the Quran. So by calling an eclipse an ayah, the tradition is basically elevating it to the level of scripture. It's a living message from the heavens that demands our full attention. To really get a handle on the urgency here, it helps to think of it as a kind of spiritual emergency. Now, this isn't about panicking, but it is about immediately shifting your priorities. Think of it like this. A fire alarm goes off, and it demands an immediate physical response, right? You drop everything you're doing, and you get to safety. Well, an eclipse acts as a spiritual alarm. It's a signal to drop all our worldly distractions and immediately tend to our spiritual well-being. It's an urgent call to reconnect. So, what does this actually look like in practice? Let's start with a solar eclipse. Since it's happening during the day, when people are up and active, the response is designed to be a communal one. The structure of the prayer itself is really unique. It starts with 2 prayer units, and it's done in a congregation. But here's where it gets interesting. Notice the key differences from other group prayers. The imam's recitation is silent, and there's no formal sermon. The focus is purely on quiet, personal connection, but within a communal setting. And the supplication, the personal prayer, continues until the sun is completely back. And get this prayer isn't meant to be rushed, not at all. In fact, it's recommended to make it long. Some accounts from the Prophet's life mention his recitation was sometimes as long as the longest chapter in the entire Quran. This isn't about endurance. It's about creating enough space for a really deep, prolonged period of reflection. Okay, but what happens if there's no imam available to organize and lead the prayer? Well, the guidance is super clear. In that case, people should just pray individually. The priority is the act of prayer itself, and this rule makes sure the focus stays on that spiritual response, avoiding any potential disunity or confusion. All right, so that's the sun. Now let's flip the script and talk about the moon. A lunar eclipse has its own unique context, and that calls for a completely different approach to the prayer. This is a fantastic example of the practical wisdom that's built right into these rituals. So the most striking difference, right off the bat, is that the lunar eclipse prayer is performed individually, not in a group. It's a private, personal act of worship. So you have to ask, what's the logic behind this big shift from communal to individual? And the reasoning is actually deeply practical. It's all about adapting the ideal spiritual response to the reality of the situation on the ground. I mean, it really just comes down to simple practicality. A solar eclipse is a daytime event, which makes it pretty easy to gather people together. But a lunar eclipse, that happens at night. Waking people up, getting them to assemble in the dark, that would be a huge burden. So the guidance makes worship easier by making it individual, removing the whole difficulty of a nighttime gathering. So, we've looked at the what and the how, the communal prayer for the sun, the individual prayer for the moon. But let's bring it all back to the most important question. What is the ultimate goal of this whole spiritual emergency response? What are we trying to achieve? You see, the formal prayer is the central pillar, for sure, but it's part of a complete spiritual response package. It includes personal supplication, that constant remembrance of God, and actively seeking forgiveness. It's a full spectrum reaction to a powerful divine sign, designed to totally realign your heart and your mind. And this kind of brings us to a final thought. In an age where we can predict eclipses down to the very second, that sense of awe can sometimes get lost in the science. But the principle of the spiritual emergency is still so powerful. It leaves us with a question. If an eclipse was a clear, unmissable sign to stop and reflect, what are the eclipses in our own lives? Those disruptions, those moments of awe, or those sudden changes that are calling us to put everything down and have our own moment of deep reflection.